Well, hello, welcome everyone. We're going to start with this new session in Yo Sigo Publicando, one of the few we're trying to do in different languages other than Spanish. In this case, it will be also in collaboration with Trend in Africa and with the BORTC from Yobe State University. And with us, we have Signe Altmae. She's a researcher at Ramon y Cajal Fellow at the University of Granada. And she's going to talk to us about her experiences and tips on how to write and prepare a grant proposal, which is, I think, something that we all very much need. And well, without further ado, I'll just hand you the word to you, Signe, and let you start.
Thank you very much. Yes, the topic that I will be presenting today is how to prepare and write a grant proposal. And I think I could already start presenting. And I like questions. So if anybody has questions, feel free to ask. If you write in the chat, of course, while I'm presenting, I will not see, I'm afraid. Then I will address the questions later. But it's no problem if you want to interrupt and ask at the moment when I'm talking about something. So I will start to present. I will share the screen. So I don't see now any cameras or anything. So is it all okay? If anybody could just confirm.
Yes, everything
okay.
perfect. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So I am a researcher at the University of Granada, and I mean, clearly I'm not Spanish looking, so I'm from Estonia, and I did my PhD studies in Estonia, and then had a great opportunity to go to a neighbor country, Sweden, and to continue with the studies in Karolinska Institute in Sweden. So I still continue the tight collaboration with this great institution, one of the top universities in Europe, and trying to have a nice research line here also in Granada, in Spain. So yes, I will talk about how to prepare and write a grant proposal. And clearly, I'm not the expert, the best in the world, but I have some experience. So I will try to share some tips and some recommendations and tell my stories from my side of the coin. So we could start with the question, how important is grant writing in science? Or actually, we can even eliminate the grant here, and we could just, how important is writing in science? So I would say it is crucial. It's important in almost anything you do. It is important. Even if you are doing some summary or applying, we are not just talking about grants here, applying for some competition on CV level or anything, or even to get a doctorate grant, or so it applies for everything. I truly believe it is very, really important, essential. I have added in the presentation some sayings or slogans that I think they are really good. It's either write something worth reading or do something worth writing. I think it applies very well. I'm not going to sell myself or anything or a research line I'm into, but I just want to show it's a very brief summary of my trajectory. I come from Estonia, as I mentioned, did my PhD studies in the University of Tartu in Estonia, and then continued second PhD I did in Sweden in the Karolinska Institute. Then I got a postdoc grant to come to Spain from the national level, and then I got the European level or world level, one of the best postdoc grants, Marie Curie, to continue research in Granada. Then I went back with another Marie Curie to Karolinska, and now I'm a Ramon y Cajal researcher in Granada in Spain. So if you look at this, it looks beautiful, no? I mean, in every step, all the steps I have had to apply for funding, and I have managed to get these fundings because all the processes have been competitive. So I have had to pass. I had to write many applications and get the funding to achieve all this. So it looks beautiful on the paper. It looks beautiful, but the reality is, I mean, it's still beautiful, but to achieve what I just showed, the trajectory, it's just the tip of the iceberg. I'm not presenting how many grants I haven't been successful. So if anybody wants to be successful in obtaining funding on grants or whatever level of competitions, the only way is to apply. The more you apply, the higher you have success. Of course, the higher is the failure to not to succeed, no? So let's start with what is a project or grant proposal. It is a clear and concise presentation of what you are going to do before you are going to do it. So it has to be very well presented. What is important in this? It has to fit like as well as a glove. So no grant comes through without a proposal. And to get a grant, you must write a good proposal. And to write a proposal, you must read the call very well. So there are many people applying for many things, many calls that can be applied, but it has to fit. The call has to fit with you, with your ideas, no? I mean, I am working in the research of human reproduction, mainly infertility, female infertility. So clearly, I'm not going to apply for something that is, for example, some space or environmental research. So it has to be, the grant you write has to be first good, of course, but it has to fit. It has to fit for the call you are applying for. Yeah. More facts or points to highlight. Best way to never get a grant, just don't write any. Best way to get a grant, write many and follow the instructions. And where should I begin? Begin at the beginning and stop when you get to the end. Okay, you can see this way, but I have experienced that when writing an application, it's not, every day is not the best day for writing. Some days you feel better, some days you feel less inspired. So in that less inspired days, and you don't have time to postpone either because there are always deadlines. So what I do in these less productive days, I do parts that doesn't require much brain effort. For example, references list or some tables, like looking visually good, no? So this recommendation, where should I begin? I think you can begin where you feel like. If you feel like writing the idea, write it. But if you don't have it so clear, you could start with the methodology part that you know with methods you are going to apply, and later you can refine the parts that needs more precision. So in general, when something can be read without effort, means that a great effort has gone into its writing. So here to highlight when we start the writing, no? The most important, of course, is the idea. And I don't want to say that the idea has to be simple, but you have to transfer it clearly enough. It should be simple enough to understand it. So dream for the most important research idea you would like to do. And an idea is something that only exists in your mind, so you have to express it. Here they recommend that think of the simplest research idea you could easily implement. What I was saying, it doesn't have to be the most simple idea, but the presentation has to be clear enough, simple enough that people can understand it. The simple concepts are the most powerful. Take a simple or clear idea and identify a specific problem or need associated with it. So, I mean, everybody is expert in the field and you know the best what is the need. And simplicity is the key to happiness in the modern world. So if you get a grant, it makes you happy. So it applies finally to everything. And yes, science is not everything. There is a high investment in the research and you can find money. Of course, every country has its own policies, but if you are not finding funding enough in your country, you can go to the bigger level, European level, or we are talking Africa. I don't know if you have some on that continental level or world level. It doesn't have to be just a small limit. It doesn't have to be limited with the local funding possibilities. So what I was saying, that science is not everything. Science writing grant is both science and art. I do think that research is a creative work. I actually personally wanted to become an artist. I like to draw a lot. And finally, things go how they go, and I ended up in research. And I'm not feeling that I'm missing the art part because it is creative. Research is creative. I like the sentence here that highlights that there is no grantsmanship that will turn a bad idea into a good one, but there are many ways to turn the good idea into a bad. Another thing to consider when writing a grant, it's like playing a game. It's following the rules. You have to play the rules the funders are putting. So you have to read really carefully the guidelines. Get them first and then read them in detail. Follow the guidelines because it's their money, not yours. You cannot put the rules of the game. Use the key terms in your proposal that they are writing in when describing the call. Create a checklist, like take notes, what to do and not to do. So when it comes now example. So when I'm applying for a funding, first I'm reading let's say the rules of the game in detail. So I will put here now example. It is this example 1. I will share the screen. And it's one of the recent grants I applied. It's on the international level. It's from US, from private funding. Doesn't matter, this is not important now. But what is important, when I start to read, I always print out, if it's a possible option, and start to make lines and a list of things. So when, let's say we are just reading example, they actually say many information, they give a lot of information in the call. So it's up to you to catch it. So our goal is to support breakthrough research on reproductive aging. Okay, so I have to make sure that in my application, I'm using the word breakthrough research on reproductive aging, because this is what they are looking for. So I'm presenting what they are looking for. Women in science through funding. Okay, I'm a woman, I can apply. In case if it were here, men in science, this call in this case is not for me. Or if I really would like to apply, I will have to find the co-applicant who will apply for his name, and we will be coordinating together this project. And so what I want to say, you have to read really carefully. There are more things. If they are saying that they want to support novelty, they want to support some establishment of some product. So I should aim my project according to this. to generate new knowledge or to generate a product, for example, or some patent, then I should aim my project on this direction. What else I'm paying attention when I'm reading? I'm not going to read this call now. It's not important. But what another thing is to see what is the budget, because based on the budget, I can think one project or I can think another project. If the budget is 1,000 euros, I think small, let's say. If the project is €1,000,000, I think much bigger. I can increase the sample size. I'm working on the with patient material, or I can do some methodology, apply some methodology that is really expensive that you could not. Another important thing is the key dates. You have to follow the key dates or have them clearly in your mind and not be late. And then when always reading the call, then finally there is a part that says at some point, or it is not so directly said, but the information is there. What is evaluated? What is the evaluation based on? So the points here are 4 points: the scientific quality, potential impact of the work, degree to which the proposal work breaches scientific areas, potential of investigators to contribute to a high collaborative international network. So even if the project or the grant model doesn't include these parts, I have to make sure that these parts are clearly highlighted in my text. So normally a project, let's just give example, has background, methodology, impact, and so on. But there are not these kind of specific subtitles. So one option to do is you can create these subtitles under specific parts, because this is what they are evaluating. So give them the information they are evaluating. Make them also easier for the evaluators to catch the information they are looking for, or make these parts some bold or underline that this is what they are looking for. Provide them the information. So this was the example, and now let's go for the parts. In general, the grant applications have defined parts. The title, which is very important, then abstract summary, because based on this, when I get I'm also reviewing applications. So when I get a call to review, I get the abstract. And when I accept to read it, I print it out, I have it on my table. I'm not clearly having that same moment, I'm not going to read it. So it is usually on my table, like active pile. And then times to times my eyes catch the abstract, the summary, and I'm reading, and is it catching, is it not catching? Just by this, I already start to develop my opinion about this project. So it is important, abstract summary. Program or needs statement, goals and objective, hypothesis, methodology, project management, quality of key personnel and institution, also really important part, evaluation plan, dissemination plan, references cited, budget, appendices, normally CV, and another some certification, and point of ethics. So these are the common points. In one way or the other way, you should go through or address during your preparation for a grant application. So let's go for the title and abstract. As I mentioned, it is important. If it's like, unfortunately, when you see a person first time, before talking, you get some impression. It's like a body language, appearance. It does account. So this is the same. Title and abstract had to be nice to catch. So it gives the first impression. It should be original, sexy in that way, and informative. Acronym also is important. I mean, if you are thinking of whatever the project title is, but the acronym is not pronounceable, although it highlights all the first letters of or capital letters of the first words, and it's not pronounceable, it's not a good acronym. Acronym has to be memorizable and easy to pronounce. Here is a funny how scientists spend their time taken to complete and part of the project, to write one project. So the project proposal takes this time. Data collection to get the information to write the project takes double, and the biggest part of this goes for the acronym finding. It's true. I mean, it's not true that it takes so big part, but I have to confess that I spend a lot of time finding a good acronym. There are internet pages. You can search acronym creator, and you can you put the keywords and it provides you combinations. So I do spend time on this. So, okay, abstract has to be synthesized well, and it is also important because it's like the first reference, and based on this, the evaluation team will be addressed, and the reviewers, proper reviewers, will be thought after. So it's important. Now the problem statement or needs statement. Make a compelling case why you should be funded. Anything you write, it should be clear. And when you're writing, I would recommend you to think that you are the funder. So what would you like to see? How would you like it to be clear? You would like it to be clear. You would like it to, that you like it enough that convincing that you want to fund it. So always try to think if you are the funder. So what is the idea or problem you want to examine, address? Why is it important? To whom is it important? What related research project has been done before, and why it is different, why it is needed to be done. So the why statement, you have to state the problem. Let's say just something general, cancer research, no? Why? Because there are so many people suffering this disease, there are so many, there is a need, no? What is the problem in the society? So state what is known in this, describe what is not known, and why we need to fill this gap. So these are the concepts you have to make clear, and you have to make clear for the funder who clearly is not expert in your field. You are the most expert, or one of the most experts in your field. So you have to be clear enough to sell your idea for people who are not the experts, but who understand research. We continue with the same, the problem or the why. The first sentence is the problem. So many people with a cancer, or the cancer is still unsolved problem or whatever, but the problem should be stated already in the first sentence. And with the first sentence, you already, are you interested reading further or not reading further? Every next sentence keeps you interested, or you are losing the interest. Then clarify the problem by defining both the behavior and what is normal. Not only the disease, no, but also focus what is the norm. And you have to make sure that you convince that there is a need for addressing what you would like to, the question that you are presenting. So the grant is not an idea. I have idea. It is a plan that you have to convince first yourself, your team, even your neighbors and family, your institution, and then mainly the funder. So if you are doubting if the research question is well enough question, you can ask your family, do you understand? Or some colleagues that are not in the field, some other field, that it has to be clear enough and interesting enough. So the background is, of course, the state of the art. What is known so far? Be careful, because we all want to say that nobody has done it before. It's quite risky because we don't know everything. So try to be careful but honest, describing the background of the literature, highlight the limitations of this type of research. There is but also at the same time, you should be highlighting the novelty. There is a gap, and that is feasible to do, and why the project you are going to do is relevant, and of course key references. In this part, the reviewer or you should not, or reviewer doesn't need to see all the references on works published on the field, but just the key references. Also, when you're applying, for example, today is end of 2022, make sure that your references include publications from 2022. That shows that you are up to date. You are not presenting first some old project that you wrote maybe 3-4 years ago. Nobody wants to read a project that has not been funded, and it is clear it's not been funded and it's looking old. Even if the project is old and you want to reapply, make sure you add up-to-date references. So, scientific background, it is always good to include preliminary data. And you can say that our group has done this, and you can put in the brackets preliminary data, or you can say in the application, our preliminary data are showing this, are supporting this, or are contradicting this. So it provides evidence to the reviewers of the reasonable and feasibility of the proposed experiments, because first it shows the experiments are working, and second, that you are expert. You can do it. It's feasible what you are saying you will be doing. Also, if you are writing, let's say, the cancer example, and you are doing research in the topic, then in the background already mention also your works, or put references of your works, if, of course, if they fit. Then what you have to highlight with this scientific background, with the preliminary data, you can go to beyond state of the art. What is novel, and that you are doing it. Even the data is so novel that is preliminary, but you are onto it. Describe the relevant new experiments, in case it's experimental, research, and as I mentioned, don't be afraid to provide unpublished preliminary data, but of course, on a certain extent, because you don't want anybody to steal your ideas either. So even if it's preliminary data, make sure that you are not giving away your novel ideas. So now we were talking about the background, and into the background add also your expertise. Try to add your expertise. So now the goals and objectives. Before was the why it's needed, now the what. Be bold, but be realistic. Try to be logical in the statements that are needed. Convey the ultimate goal of the project. State clearly what will be accomplished, and then, the main goal, and break it down to a smaller measurable pieces, like sub-goals or more specific aims, more specific objectives. Now let's continue with the methodology. Any questions so far from anybody? Okay, we can address them later, and then, so methodology, how you are going to do it. That's a very important part. It's actually so important, and many people underestimate. They put a big effort into the beginning, telling about the background and your objectives, but they forget to put a lot of effort, or put less effort, also because time is running out, the methodology, the how you are going to do it. So, as here highlighted also, it's often poorly written, this part. And almost half of the proposals are turned down because this part is not clear enough. It is often the most detailed and the lengthy section of the activities. It is good if it's task-oriented and specific, detailed enough, and also you can include references. And it's good if you are, for example, me as a researcher, experimental researcher, when we are explaining some methodological part, we are following, like a sentence, we are following our protocol that has been explained more in detail, and then we put a reference. I mean, of course, you cannot explain all your experiment. You are just highlighting the key points of it and reference. And if you can add there, in our case, we are working with different methodologies. We add reference to our own work, and it is confirmation for them, for the funders, to see that it's working and we are experts. We can do it. It's feasible. And demonstrate all the steps necessary to complete the project, including management, which is important. So, key personnel or management. We were talking why, how, and now we are going to do who. Who is going to do it? I mean, of course, clearly, in most cases, it's not just a one person, it's a teamwork. So who are these people and why should they get this money? So demonstrate clearly that you are the right person or your team is the right team to do it. You have to show the expertise in the parts before. So that you are capable, convince the funders that you are capable. So, and accomplish what you do. And this is what you can show from your previous parts. Highlight the expertise and experience of all key personnel, and also the responsibilities that the people are applying. No? I mean, it's different if you apply first time or if you're applying already for more than first time, if you have previous research projects going. If you're going to apply first time of all, of course, you cannot put references from your previous projects or previous protocols. But in that case, what is clearly important in this course is the expertise that is the team. No, you have some tutor or you have a supervisor, or you have to highlight the expertise of the group that makes sure that everybody understands that you will have the support to do what you're going to do. So expertise and experience is important to be highlighted. So the second who, first we were talking who as us or me or my team, but now the second who, why this institution and why not another institution? Why, I mean, even if, let's say I'm the best researcher in the world and I have the best team, but maybe the place where I am is not the best place to do this research. So why this place? Why you are in this place doing it? So it should be stated clearly, previous experience in managing similar projects. You have all the facilities to perform this research in this institution. And also the management of the project. So this is important to highlight. Now, we have, let's say, we have written the part of the introduction, the background. We have stated our hypothesis, what we are going to do, our aims, objectives. We have passed already, we have done perfectly, let's say, the methodology part. We have explained well, addressed well, why us or me, why this institution, why we are there where we are. And now is one important point is how do you get it out, what you're going to do? What is a dissemination plan? Because of course the funders, they have money and they are happy to fund interesting and good projects, but address the needs. but also they are interested that the results are disseminated. So how will you make the research results available to others? That's an important question. When I started to write projects, first applications, there was no need to have a dissemination plan. It didn't exist. And every year, the dissemination plan is growing. The weight of this part is important, is growing, and it's evaluated. It's not just when you are writing the grant reports, the funded grant reports, there is an extra section where you have to address all the dissemination plan. Where have you been, how to say, presenting your results of the research results. So you have to have quite well explained the dissemination plan, which are the target audience with media you are going to use. I think it's really nice, this social media summary from different ways you can disseminate. So consider websites, create one if you don't have any, specifically for this project. Of course, when you are applying for grant, you don't have to create in the phase of applying, but you can write that once it's funded, you are going to create a website. Publications always have to, you can even say how many publications you expect, depends what level of prompt you are writing. That you are going to present at conferences on national, international level, training, education, public outreach, and so on. So this is something that we often forget to add into the budget calculations, but it's important to consider that dissemination might need some funding or budget. So when you're writing a project, calculating the costs of experiments, or whatever is your project, also try to include costs of dissemination into the budget. So sustainability and continuation. It's not so clearly usually stated in the grant applications, but it is good if it's addressed under some other parts, but addressed. So even if the funder gives you the money, so it still be, and so then what when you finish the project? So the funders are happy to hear that there is a longer lasting impact of this funding. Even if the funding finish, you still can continue, or this will be a big impact for the further next steps. So I think it is good to address it. Doesn't have to be long, but it's somewhere the information for the funders to see. And briefly describe how you propose to continue the project beyond the funding that you are requesting. Another question, ethics. Of course, there are different levels of ethics requirements depending on the research project. I'm working with human materials, so the part of ethics is important. And often when applying for a project, the ethic permission for the specific project, of course, is you don't have it yet. You have to apply for it. So what I do in this case is I refer some exact numbers, because if they want to check my ethic permission, they can check it by the numbers I provide. No? Every ethic permission should have its number. And the committee, where do you obtain it, the name. So I provide this saying that similar material, patient material, has been analyzed in another project with this ethical permission, that we foresee there are no ethical issues when going to implement or get funding this project. So it is good to highlight that first, you control the ethical part, you have applied before, you have received ethical permission for similar samples that you are going to apply into the new project. And it is important point to consider and has to be addressed well in any application. So now let's go to the next level. We have written the application. We have everything well, no? We have sent in the application, the project, so the grant or project. Now the evaluation criteria. What is the main criteria? Of course, every grant has its criteria, but it is the applicant has to be, it's good enough. Does have experience or will gain experience. The application, is it scientifically sound? It's the why, what, how, who are they addressed well. Then the institution is support implementation. Can you do it there in this place where you are saying you are doing? The budget has to be realistic, but also don't be under-realistic. If your experiments are costing, let's say, if you get money, 10,000 euros, and your experiments cost 12,000 euros, don't put 10,000, because imagine you get funded, you cannot do what you promised to do. You don't want to pay 2,000 from your own pocket. So try to be realistic. If it is more expensive, maybe you should reconsider reducing the samples you're going to analyze. And the value for money also, of course. Is it worthy all this? So we have now example 2. Let's go to the example 2. Is here. Just the evaluation. I'm sorry it's in Spanish. That this was funded project. And often when you apply for some call, what I just want to highlight with this example is that when you apply for some call, there has been previous calls of this, previous years. So if you haven't been successful yourself, definitely you know somebody who has been successful. So you could ask this evaluation report from the previous years, from your experience or from the previous. Imagine you applied previous year for the same call and you did not get funded, but you have the evaluation report. So go through in detail. Go through what they are evaluating. Scientific excellence here. Make sure that in your application you highlight the scientific excellence. Even use the same words that the funders are using. So next here, I'm just giving example, the merits of the CV, or let's say the person, the investigator. So make sure that you highlight your merits. And here the other C point is the composition, or the team, that the team has to fit well with a research project. So you can write a separate part saying match between the research team and the objectives of the project. Nobody is inhibiting or prohibiting to add new subtitles under the big titles. But what I want to say with this example is give them what they are looking for. I'm a reviewer in different projects, and I'm saying I don't have time to read 100% everything. What we are reading is we get the idea, we read more or less, some parts, of course, more in detail, and then the general feeling of the project. And then later, you have to write a report of the project. And the report in this grant case is you need this point A, B, and C. So if I'm reading a project and already this part that is scientific excellence, it's highlighted, it makes my life easier. I'm happier when I'm reading, I'm not annoyed I have to search for this information, and I score this part better. Or the CV merits of the researcher, if they are clearly highlighted, I get them faster, and I can even give the sentences to feed the reviewer. So they will use the same sentences. They can even copy paste some sentences to the report. So if I want to say I'm the best, I can say it, no? And then they copy that she is the best, no? I mean, of course, it's not so black and white, but you have to sell yourself. And the research team, if they are evaluating, that has to be a good match between the team and the project objectives, make them clear for them. Write them out clearly, the match between the research team and the objectives. So there are these tricks that you learn with the experience. And I tell that the big experience is being a reviewer yourself. So what do reviewers look for? Of course, great ideas, simple enough that you can understand them, even if you are not exact expert of the field. Potential, great, something with potential. Also, you want them that the people are capable to do it, that they are good what they are doing. You can provide, let's say it's your first application, grant application, and you cannot provide proof that you are good in research because it's your first time to apply. But you can apply, highlight something, for example, you've been a good student. You can provide saying should be reflected, whatever you do, you are doing it well. Or let's say you want to apply a big project in cancer research and it's your first project, and but you are a good sportsman. Say somewhere in your CV that you have won a competition of this or that. So that gives hint that you are good in what you are doing. Also, the institution, that it has all the required facilities, because if you're applying for something beautiful, you are the best person to apply for it, but you don't have the facilities to run the project, that will be a minus point and you might not get funded. So, and of course, the budget has to be realistic, and you should not go beyond the limits, or not minor either. If the project, let's say project call says that the projects are funded up to 100,000 euros, don't write the project of 5,000 euros. Write the project of 80, 90, 100. So this is the level that they are expecting. So read the call and review your draft. No effort in writing a grant is wasted. Read again. Read yourself, give to your colleagues. What means? You have to have time. You have to be timely enough. I'm saying it and I'm not fully fulfilling all these requirements myself. It's always in a hurry in the end. But what I have learned with years experience is I always try to have the project ready one day before. Of course, finally, you end up being in a hurry, but it gives you extra time to address things that sometimes are unexpected. When you are going to the online platform to start to put everything, often there are parts that you didn't expect, that you have to write 3,000 words, explain internationality, for example, or things like this. So when I'm now going to apply for something, I go directly to the online version and see what exactly is needed. Is there anything beyond my project writing needs some writing? So I already add it in my document and later I copy paste. So try to be timely, and of course read very well and review. And the deadlines are important and you have to respect them. I'm sure every person who has applied more than once has experience in applying different fundings, has a story to tell about the deadlines and reaching and not reaching. In my case, I did not reach one grant application. My baby was sick and I was just not capable, didn't sleep well, baby didn't sleep, and so on and so on. And I remember submitting the project with really in a hurry, not perfect at all, but I still thought it's better to submit than not to submit. If you're not submitting, if you're not sending your project, clearly the result is 0. And if you are sending, there might be some chance. You might be lucky. And I was 1 minute late with the submission. There was some technical errors and I missed the chance for that year. So it has happened, and to avoid these things, you try to be earlier with everything. So, rejection. Does it happen? Yes, it does. It happen often? It does happen often. My personal experience, I think my success rate is maybe around 40–50%. Sometimes more, sometimes less. So what I was presenting, these are great. I have some moments I've had 5 active projects ongoing, but then comes a phase when you don't have so many projects because you haven't been lucky in getting new funding. So what you do with this information, with the rejection, you try to improve and apply next year again if possible. And read very well read really well the evaluation, because after every application you get evaluation. What are the shortcomings? Can I improve them? And try to improve them. When you are writing and thinking of the funders and who is funding, consider your audience, because the reviewer experts can range from top experts in the field or other scientists, experts in other field, but try to avoid simplicity, no? Or in this way, I said jargon in research. It has to be scientific enough, not too detailed, but scientific text. You want to get the reader's attention, so try to go to the point and win them from the first sentence. You have to have them with you interested. Another thing that people often miscalculate, follow the specifications, follow the exact instructions. If they say the font size has to be 11 or 12, don't put 11, no, don't put 10 and a half thinking they won't notice. They do notice. And try to, that it's visually good. It has to be visually good. Unfortunate truth is that we do judge visually also. If you go to a shop and you are going to buy, let's say, apples, of course, in general selection, you buy more beautiful apples than ugly apples, even if the taste and the content is the same. So the application should be visually beautiful. The sections well organized, use subheadings. You can use bold, as I have used here inside the text, highlighting some things with bold. It's more important than we think, the visual part. So just usually I'm just having the last example, the previous old project I applied before, just to show. You see here up starts the project, the deadline and so on. And then we start already, even before general information, we start the formatting. All documents must be single-spaced, 11-point type font, at least these margins. Follow the rules. They put them, you have to follow. This, I mean, follow the game. So that's what I wanted to show. Usually, in many places, they put these requirements, and this is important. So use appropriate writing style. Write to the funder. Who are the reviewers? Know them, or I mean, know that is some private funding, then maybe they don't have top researchers as a committee. They are smart people, but maybe they are not scientists. So address the language accordingly. Or if you're applying for some ministry funding of research, then you expect that there is a committee of researchers. So you can use a bit more scientific language. Write to inform, don't use language that is biased. Write to persuade, use data that you can reference, and edit your work. As a reviewer, I tell, nobody wants to read long applications. But of course, if there is a limit of 10 pages, don't present the project of 2 pages, but the project of 9 pages is already a good sign. And not 10 pages until the last line, as tight as possible. If it's this case, you have to remove text. Make space between parts, not to make the feeling that everything information has squeezed into this limitation. You have to let the feeling that it's well balanced, you have had time to work on the project, text, and there is space. Remove, make it shorter, clearer, be more straight to the point. So, no big no's in the grant writing. I mean, what you should avoid, clearly, plagiarism. This is in anything, not only in writing, everywhere. Claim no previous work exists, because there is often more than you know. Avoiding existing research, make them clear and address the gaps. Thinking very traditionally, it's good if you think provide novelty. Avoid doing everything, because clearly you cannot do everything. Make realistic plans, and you cannot rely that reviewer will figure it out. I mean, I just give example. If the project funder is asking how you are going from Paris to London, is a project idea. No? How you are going, the funder would like to know. Don't make telling that London has so many airports and Paris has so many airports, and then the reviewer has to figure out that you might be taking the flight between the 2 cities. No. Make it clear that you are taking the plane from this airport to this airport. And just this example to tell, don't make the reviewer think that you might be taking or this airport. To make it think, give what they are asking. Visually beautiful, it is important. Unfortunately, it is true, it is important. So I'm just presenting my data. This is one of my first projects when we were analyzing material from endometrium, uterus from female, and it's not bad. And I got the project funded. But one of the last projects we applied, it looks much more better. No, it's of course has been some years difference, and we had different tools to make it better. But clearly, if you have 2 projects, if you see this, is clearly more beautiful than this. Even imagine, but we could imagine that the content is the same. It's much more catchy. It shows that the person has dedicated time to work on the project, is expert, and is doing well what he's doing. So, in the proposal to consider, believe that somebody wants to give the money. There are people with money, especially in US, and there are possibilities. Identify yourself and your strengths. And when you're finalizing it, just ask, is it clearly defined? Is it worth doing? Is it doable? And do your homework. Research the prospective funding bodies, gather information on the details of the grants available, how to apply for them, members of the committee, if it's possible, previous successful grants. If you have some colleague who has been successful, maybe he or she is willing to provide the old project. Clearly, you're not going to copy it. So maybe you could see how this was funded, what did she do or he did well to get it funded. Study the previous successful grants. What are the current trends? Of course, you know your field. What are the current trends? What are the limitations? Who are the decision makers in the applications? Deadlines. Follow the deadlines. And of course, also, what is the success rate? You can do this homework. For example, I applied for one grant that they gave one pharmacy company was providing. They were funding one grant. And I got to know, I applied, but later I got to know that there were like 1,000 applications. So imagine what is the success rate to succeed in among thousands of applications to be the only one to be funded. So I realized I have higher chances on the European Horizon 2020 funding than in this private company. So I'm not applying for this funding anymore because it is too competitive for the time and effort. Let's say the effort and the benefit is not compensating for me. So this information you can all gather before. So the final information, or what makes a good grant proposal, to sum up what I've been talking here 1 hour, easy to understand, clear, concise, something doable, details, what will be done, detailed enough, catchy enough, compelling story, paints a vivid picture. You feel like it is needed. You feel like you want to fund this project. Visually appealing, and so on and so on. And this is what makes a bad grant proposal. So it's also good to see one bad proposal and see why this was not funded. Lack of clarity, a lot of errors, even grammatical errors. It's finally, we all make errors, but if they are repeating too much, it feels that the application has not had time enough to be maturing. So try to avoid mistakes. Unrealistic in all sense, lack of alignment bores the reader, and no clear outcomes. When I'm evaluating, I think the worst for me is to be bored. You feel like I have to read it and I don't want to read it. So already even the content is good, the presentation is not good enough, and I'm not convinced. So I clearly will evaluate the project less favorable than another, even if the content, or let's say the idea, would be the same, but it's well presented and well written. So that is all I wanted to share with you. I hope you get some some tips, something to take home with. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Sorry, Nicolas had to leave the meeting, so thank you very much for this presentation. I hope it has been very useful for everybody. As the session has been recorded, it will be uploaded today or tomorrow on YouTube, and all attendees will be able to download the certificate on our website in Yo Sigo Publicando in the next day. So that's all. Thank you very much and see you soon.
Hi, Signe, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I managed to connect. I'm on the cell phone. Sorry, I had to go to get my son from school. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation.
I'm looking at the comments. I see somebody said that the slides are not changing. I hope they were changing.
I don't. While I was in the house, they were changing.